You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is October 16, 2023, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we're bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. And by the way, if you have somebody that, or you would like to be on the show, or you have somebody and you're doing something in your area, let us know. You can contact us at find us at facebook.com, Knuckleheads of Liberty, or email at knuckleheads@knuckleheadsofliberty.com. Now, today we don't actually have a guest with us. We wanted to take some time to talk about the current Israel-Palestine conflict. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time kicking that issue around and a few other issues. In fact, the issues we're going to go on is that the issue of Canada trying to cancel or not cancel, but regulate its podcasts. And if we have time, there's an article on the science being canceled for political correctness in this one conference, and then the Knucklehead Noise Patrol, where we like to talk about somebody saying something kind of crazy in the news. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce you to our panel. In our lower left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our lower right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. My name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. And behind the scenes, we have James Just, who is our invisible hand. I just wanted to give our invisible hand a little credit because we forget often because he's invisible.
That's right, he's invisible.
So, but anyways, let's jump right into it. The Israel-Palestine war. So, if you haven't been living in a literal cave, I mean, I guess maybe if you're a Taliban member and have been living in a cave, you might not be aware of this. But if you're anybody else, this has been sort of world news. So, James, can you bring up the visual? I just want to kind of let everybody know roughly where we're talking about. So here's sort of a map of the world. And if we zoom in, it's right over here within the Mediterranean Sea. Here you can see this strip right here is Israel, and the Gaza Strip, that where all the action recently happened near, is right here. This little strip of land right there. So and apparently what happened was not this last Saturday, but Saturday over a week ago, some Palestinians breached a gate, and they came into some of these nearby settlements that Israelites were living in. And,
well, they're not settlements, no, those are kibbutz.
Settlements. They're called kibbutz. They're like small farming villages or something like that is about a good way to describe them. And so they came in and they essentially just slaughtered them. There was, a little bit of attacking of military, but the target seemed to be just to attack the citizens themselves. And so it's initially they thought it was in the hundreds. Now we're seeing it's well over 1,000 Israelis were killed. And of course, this is part of a long conflict. So this is just sort of the most recent card out of a very big deck. Here's a little page from the oh gosh, what's the name of this? I think it's Conference of Foreign Relations. I think it's called. But they have this long page just to give you a sense of how long this thing has been running. And they started in 1947, but actually this stuff goes way back to post World War I, when the British controlled this land. The Ottoman Empire fell, and they were sort of managing things. And around the end of World War II, you had the issue where they decided, wouldn't it be great if we had a Jewish state? Because, hey, all these people have been killed in the Holocaust, and so a lot of Jews started migrating there with the being promoted, I guess, by the British, and who were in control of the land at the time. And so they had decided they were going to establish a state. There had been different decisions by the UN and others that, hey, this is a great idea, let's do this. And they made proposals for the land. But once this happened and Israel established a state, the Arab countries around there didn't agree to the decision, and so they immediately attacked Israel. And there's been a long history of fighting in this region ever since, of peace negotiations, different land distributions, different attacks, pretty much all coming from the Arab side as far as the actual military attacks go. It's sort of like they make an agreement, they decide to do something, and then suddenly there's an attack. And so that's led to the people the Arabs who are in that region essentially living under conditions of like a concentration camp almost. When you talk about the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. But keep in mind that a lot of these people have had the ability to, I guess, vote for a two-state solution where they would get to, I guess, change these circumstances, and they literally don't want to. They want Israel just simply gone.
That's true.
Is what the so it's and of course here we are today after all this. I guess the other biggest date to be aware of is in 2007. I don't know if that's in this timeline, but that's here it is roughly. Hamas winds up becoming elected around that time. I think it's 2006, 2007 to be the leadership. And of course, Hamas is regarded as a terrorist organization by many countries,
including the United States.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, but they were elected democratically by the people of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. I'm not sure if that includes the West Bank too, because I know
it does not. No. It's just Gaza. Just Gaza.
Okay. Yeah. And so but anyways, so there's been numerous attempts to try and solve this problem. And, in the last elections that they had, which was back then, they elected essentially a terrorist organization that said their goal was just to get rid of the Jews. So this is
from the river to the sea. That's their mantra.
Yeah. So, and it's just a really kind of a sad drama that's been playing out over a long period of time. They'll fire rockets from these areas. The international community will essentially condemn any retaliations of Israel by firing rockets back into that area. And so it's just, but it's not really a conventional war. It's not like, there's armies on the ground. Essentially, the terrorist groups within Palestine attack the Israelis, and then they go hide their weapons in different places within the Gaza Strip and other and maybe the West Bank too. I'm not sure, but and so Israel, it's sort of like, well, if you don't do something, then you're just going to get more attacks. But if you do something, it sounds like you're going to get condemnation and more attacks too. So it's sort of a no-win situation for everybody there. But this has led up to the current crisis. And as I was saying, it was just an absolute carnage. This particular, I'll let this video play a little bit so you can just see it silently while we're talking. But essentially, this was actually a rave that was going on. It was just a concert out in the desert. And you can actually see little specks in the distance. Those are Hamas fighters coming in on hang gliders, essentially, or Tim, I don't know if you know the specific type of aircraft that they were on, but it was something like a little parachutes or gliders, and they were just sort of coming in and just mowing people down. I mean, these are people running in terror for their lives who just came for a concert, and a lot of them were actually probably people who were more on the Palestinian side in the sense that they were for, you know, they were pushing peace and stuff like that. So anyways, but here's some of the carnage afterwards. I mean, you could see this is just body bags of people afterwards at the concert. So just, you know, horrifying. I mean, you know, for the most part, defenseless people. I think I saw a few images of some security guards with guns, you know, some sidearms, but you know, no match for essentially a military unit of hundreds coming in to just take people out. Here's some pictures of some of the concert goers just running off into the desert. So this is a picture of a hostage, and we'll see another image of that hostage in another tab that I have here in a second to show. But just, you know, they didn't just kill over 1,000 people. They took back, it sounds like maybe in the hundreds of hostages too. So
the number is about 150 right now.
Yeah. So this is pretty serious stuff, not just your average one of the mill. And now Israel is on the warpath. They are going to send troops into Gaza. And it's kind of a weird situation too, because this is, I mentioned before, it's almost like a concentration camp in the sense that these people don't have control of their own territory, other than the fact that they elected Hamas as their leadership. Israel sort of has them in a, I guess they have their country blockaded. So because of their terror concerns, they don't want just anything going in and out of the country. So they literally control the power and I think the water, but they control a lot of the normal resources that you'd think about going in and out of a country. And so they've shut that off. There's several million Palestinians living here, and they're going to go in on a ground assault, it sounds like, after having aerially bombarded this place. So it's going to be a humanitarian disaster, no matter how you look at it. That's not to minimize the humanitarian disaster of over 1,000 people being killed in Israel, too, by a bunch of people whose sole mission was just to murder people. So anyways, so that's kind of where we're at. And we have image. This is just a story from NBC that talks about hostages, but you can see this woman here in this other image we showed before, and she was being taken out of the Jeep, sort of paraded around while everybody cheered. This is back after she'd been brought back to Gaza, and you can see the blood all over her. So she's probably been brutalized in a lot of ways. And then he's putting her back in the vehicle to go stash her somewhere while they use her for negotiation or whatever the heck they're planning to use her for. So that is the kind of the situation off the bat. And I guess I at this point, did you guys want to at least talk a little bit about the current conflict, I guess, or I kick it to you guys if you guys had any thoughts about this right off the bat?
Well, this is a mess. No matter how you look at it, no matter what side of the issue you're on in this matter, it is a mess. The Jewish people, I mean, have been persecuted, God knows for how long, and I mean, the most recent one, of course, was the Holocaust. 6 million Jews were killed in Europe during Nazi Germany. So Israel, the historic homeland of the Jews, I guess, came about as a country, form a country in 1948. So the question then becomes here: when they declared their independence as a state? Of course, all the countries around them are all Muslim Arab countries. They attacked. Israel fought them off. They won. And they have maintained this state since 1948. Now, obviously, they have done some things that we cannot agree with in terms of how they have set the state up in relation to some of the people around them, whether in the West Bank or in Gaza. But the Palestinian Muslims are wrong. They have not made it easy for Israel to exist as a country or to exist as a state. I mean, Hamas, which is the main person that is involved in this conflict, this particular conflict. The second thing in their charter is the annihilation of the Jewish state. I mean, one of the big mantras of them is from the river to the sea. That's the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea.
And Leon, before you go on, just so I can show the viewers, James, can you pull this up? This is a page from the UN, so we're not making this up. This is part of the charter of Hamas. Yeah. So, and I wanted to show you that there it says, there is no solution to the Palestine question except by jihad. All initiatives, proposals, and international conferences are a waste of time and vain endeavors. So this is the leadership that the Palestinians elected.
Yes,
leadership that essentially says there's not going to be a solution to this, and that jihad, that means holy war, is the only way to deal with it. And then here's another thing I just wanted to give you a sense too of what we're dealing with here. This is another excerpt from it, and this is the UN saying this. This is not a Jewish organization or the United States. This is the United Nations. Okay, they said the day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight the Jews, and then it says in parentheses, killing the Jews, when the Jews will hide behind stones and trees. The stones and trees will say, "Oh, Muslims, there is a Jew behind me. Come and kill him." Only a garkad tree would not do that because it is one of the trees of the Jews. So apparently this is kind of the fanciful language that they're saying in their own charter, the leadership that was elected. So I'm not really sure, when we talk about moral equivalence here, I'm not really sure how you deal with a situation like this where one group literally elects as their leaders people who say this out loud. And there's the Anti-Defamation League has a whole bunch of quotes too by different leaders of Hamas. But it says here's one. It says the Jews are the most despicable and contemptible nation to crawl upon the face of the earth because they have displayed hostility to Allah. And there's just quote after quote after quote from their leaders that are in that same vein. So I just wanted to go ahead, Leon. I wanted to let people know we're not just making this up.
But you see, this is really the problem. So many times they have various U.S. administration and European governments have tried to find a negotiated settlement to this problem. During the Clinton administration, they had a deal. They had come to a negotiated point where the Palestinians were going to get 87% of what they wanted, and still Yasser Arafat and company could not agree to it. They did not. And so to me, it's very difficult for you to have any sort of negotiation when the intent of one side is to wipe out the existence of the other. It's just, you could never come to a negotiated settlement if that is the mentality. Now, for years we have had the two-state solution on the table. I mean, it's not perfect, it is not ideal, but I cannot see what else could be viable in the area, given the contentions that go on between these two groups, the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority and the Hamas, who is concentrated in Gaza. But the Israelis themselves, really and truly, not to make them angels here, they are not. I mean, they have had settlements all over Gaza at one time. They have not given up that. They gave up that in 2005, 2006. But they have settlements that they are pushed into in the West Bank that they have control, and they still control even to this day. So it is a nasty conflict, no matter how you look at it. But there will never be a negotiated solution a negotiated solution if one side is thinking the only way out of this is the annihilation of the other. And this latest example of what Hamas did in southern Israel is beyond, I mean, is beyond comprehension, quite frankly. It's way beyond comprehension. There's nothing could justify that in my mind. Nothing. Okay? Fine, you're mad at the Israelis. Fine, you want to have your quote unquote homeland or whatever it is you want to call it. But and I'm obviously in war. In war, you innocent people die because I mean, they call it collateral damage. You know, that's a horrible thing, but they do call it collateral damage. But when you're fighting war, when you're fighting and you're explicitly targeting civilians, this cannot, I mean, even the Geneva Convention does not permit this. We can no way endorse, or we could be no way support anything like this. There's no way we can. And we have people on American universities now talking about, oh, Palestine, Hamas is a resistance organization. You can't call them a resistance organization when they're doing these sort of things that they did on October the 7th. You can't. So, you know, I mean, I know sure there's a lot of complications here. This conflict has been going on, you know, way beyond, further back than 1948. So maybe I'm sure Tim wants to jump in. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah.
Wow, that was excellent. Absolutely excellent, Leon. It's a synopsis that I agree with 100%. And I couldn't have said it as well, to be honest.
Thank you.
But yeah, that, you know, I go to the, you know, I'm going to kind of go off a little bit and just wonder what happened to the security organizations and more importantly, the intelligence organizations in Israel, and even with the help of the CIA, I suppose. Why, you know, there's suspicious circumstances around the attack and why it was so unexpected. And so I think there was a failure there in some way or another. It just seems that there was a failure in not having a warning ahead of time of what was about to come. And maybe that's just wishful thinking too on my part, and expectation that all attacks can be anticipated. So
what would you just jump in real quick there, Tim? Yeah, this is something where for the audience, this isn't like this is the first attack. I mean, there have been, it is the first kind of attack that was sort of like this, where they just went after civilians, but they've launched missiles into their area many times, and there's been lots of other skirmishes that they've had. So this is a rough neighborhood for Israel. It's not like they don't know that this could happen any day. So go ahead.
Yeah. I don't think it's prime real estate on the Israeli Gaza border there. I would think they maybe want to move in. Property. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and concert promotion is definitely in the toilet right now. So, but one thing Leon said reminded me. I'm sorry, I'm going to go a little bit off. I'm sorry, but in talking about this inability to come to a negotiated settlement, it kind of reminds me of what's going on between the United States, Russia, involving Ukraine, where the United States has no intention whatsoever of getting into a negotiated agreement with Russia over Ukraine. And it's just like, you know, it's either Russia has to become a U.S. puppet state, like everybody else over there, including Ukraine, or you know, all bets are off. No way Russia can win, and there's no negotiation. Even that conference that they had, I can't remember the name of it, but prior to the attack and subsequent to the attack was just, in Angela Merkel's words, just a facade to trick Russia and buy time for Ukraine. So even their so-called negotiations are just nothing but a facade. So maybe the United States doesn't use the flowery language of talking rocks and trees, but and maybe they don't want the annihilation of all of Russia, I suppose. That'd be a difficult thing. But nonetheless, there's that just complete roadblock. So there seems to be a lot of a lack of diplomacy around the world involving Ukraine and involving this situation over in between Hamas and Israel. So I don't know. It's a mess. I agree, Leon. But you can't support people that go around and kill innocent people. It's just no way. You know. I sure as heck would not protest with a sign. In supporting Hamas's actions.
Indeed.
Well, and I, it's funny. I was going to save this till a little bit later in the show, but since you guys have both touched on the subject of protesting, one of the things that is sort of a victim, it seems like, of this, a casualty of this war, I guess, appears to be free speech, because what we're seeing in a lot of places is we're seeing some really hard to take, maybe, I guess, rallies or protests that are in favor of Palestine. But nevertheless, that is sort of how free speech works to some degree, that, you have to let these things happen. And what we're actually seeing in some of these places around the world is they're banning people from coming out and essentially having pro-Palestinian protests. And Jane, maybe you could bring up the visual on this. Here's an article from the AP. France has banned pro-Palestinian protests and vowed to protect Jews from resurgent anti-Semitism. So that is one of the things that happened. And another thing that is a little bit disturbing, and by the way, it's not just France. There's other countries to lesser degrees have also banned or put restrictions on pro-Palestinian protests. So I think Germany and a few other countries. But another thing that's interesting is that some of these, like the European Union, has essentially attacking Elon Musk for allowing his platform to show videos of a lot of this carnage that's been happening. And I think that's really disturbing, because I think the best thing to help avoid war is to see the horrors of war. And if we can see this stuff, then it makes us more likely to not want to get into this stuff. And this is really interesting too, because I guess, hey, I do see we're up near the top of the or the end of this segment for public access. So let me just say, hey, if you're watching on public access, this conversation is going to continue online. So come check us out there. You can find us at Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook at Knuckleheads of Liberty. Just search for that. And you can find a lot of other conversations we've had as well. Okay, so back to the conversation we were just having. So James, maybe you could pull up the visual again. So we have Musk being essentially attacked by the European Union, saying they want him to censor this stuff. And quite frankly, it's interesting because Hamas is literally putting out a lot of this video themselves. So it's really weird, because when you have these, when you have these conflicts, a lot of times there's all kinds of propaganda coming out to make the other side look as bad as possible. Hamas is literally putting out a lot of the video showing the brutality that they've done, and they're proud of it. So this is, one of the crazy things that's going on as well in this situation. And when we talk about some of these protests, there was a kind of a crazy protest in Australia, and we actually have a video clip of this that I'll have James put up. But this was supposed to be a sort of a thing for the people that are Jewish to mourn, to come to the Sydney Opera House, and they were going to display the flag of Israel and lights on the Opera House. And this is sort of what happened. James, can you bring the video? It's a video clip 2. So you literally had a crowd of protesters, and they were yelling, "Gas the Jews!" And actually, we didn't show the entire clip because, quite frankly, some of the language got worse. It's essentially the crowd started chanting "F the Jews," and this is something that was set up for essentially a chance for people to heal after a horrific attack, and that's what happened. So just to let you know, I mean, there's a serious question here. It's not just people getting kind of all, I guess overly sensitive and saying, "Hey, we just have to cancel everything." I mean, this is kind of extreme stuff, and so there's definitely that. And another kind of crazy thing, I want to bring this up as well in the same topic, and before I let you guys in, is in response to some of this stuff that we're seeing on campuses, and quite frankly, this is the worst I've seen, this one that happened in Australia. So the ones on the campuses may not be as bad, but there's a lot of college campuses where students are coming out and they're saying that Israel completely brought this on themselves, and this is not Palestine's fault at all for what happened. And so Bill Ackman, he is this is kind of a, I don't know what you want to call it, a sort of a maybe a conservative or maybe even a libertarian response. I don't know, but it's he's a what do they call it, hedge fund manager, and he has decided that, well, the proper response to this is, hey, I want to know who all these people are who are saying this garbage, and I want a list of their names so that we don't accidentally hire any of them in our companies. And there's been a lot of prominent people who jumped on board of this. People like Alan Dershowitz and others are vocally going out there and saying that, hey, if I see students that are standing out there, put their names out there so that we don't associate with any of them in the future. So I'm going to throw out the speech. What do you guys want to say about these free speech issues and that you're seeing here pop up as potential casualties of this war?
Well, there are several aspects of this. Okay, now if we are talking about private organizations taking actions against people because of their political views, like the Bill Ackman case, if these are private organizations, well, I cannot condemn them for that. I mean, we do have a right of free speech, but that doesn't mean we have a right of free speech without consequences.
Oh, and real quickly, hold on, James, I don't think we got the visual on that last one. Can you pull that up real quick? Because the Bill Ackman one, I just want people to see that. It's mainly focused at Harvard, by the way. And we just saw Harvard recently. They were the ones who wanted to discriminate against Asians coming to their campus by saying that Asians are less likable than everybody else. Okay, just want to get that out there. Okay, back to you, Leon.
So if Ackman or any private organization wish to do something like this, I may see some ethical problems with it, but I think it is their right, just as because we have free speech, but we don't have free speech without consequences. Now, on the other side of that, though, there's also this issue of where people are exercising their free speech rights, but some of their words does suggest incitement of violence, and that is where our line of free speech has been drawn. I mean, this particular incident you just showed, Jason, did occur in Australia. Of course, they are not under our constitution, but if such a thing is happening in the U.S., you could probably make a constitutional case that should not be allowed. That should not be allowed under the text of incitement of violence. But we have to be careful, because whenever the government get a way, some leg up to limiting speech, they will always take it further than intended. So I'm very leery when you have governments banning speech. Should we ban, like, if something like this was happening in the US, where, say, somebody was out there protesting and talking about gas to Jews, gas to Jews? I mean, that sounds like Nazi Germany, quite frankly. If somebody was saying that, I mean, what should we do? Should that person be arrested? That person, what would we do about something like that? Or should that person be silenced in some way? I mean, if it's done on a platform, maybe the government could argue that those things should be taken down. But there's that complication of what would you do if these incitement of violence were going on, whether on a platform or going on in say in the public, outside in the public, on the street, right out in front of where I am right now here in New York. It's still a complicated issue, if even if we are talking about the incitement of violence. But I really don't want the government get into the business of limiting speech. I really don't want them to do that. But it is a complicated issue.
Yeah. Well, you're hitting it out of the park today, Liam. I think we have the right to peaceably assemble.
Yes.
And talk that
Tim,
way is certain.
Don't you remember that Chris Cuomo told us, where does it say we have to be peaceful?
He did.
That was CNN telling us that. Anyway, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Maybe Chris Cuomo would like to weigh in on this topic when it comes to this, gas to Jews stuff. What do you think, Chris? Doesn't matter, right? But it's complicated and so on. So what are you going to do about it when this kind of thing happens? And I honestly, I'm leery too of the government, deciding what's peaceful and what's not. Their definition may not agree with mine, especially as a libertarian. So these things are a tough call. Yeah, sorry, I can't add to it.
Well, I think one thing, it's funny. I mentioned in that video they were saying "F the Jews" later, and I think that has to fall under free speech. I mean, to be able to come out and say, on a street corner that you simply don't like somebody else, that has to be protected under free speech. But when you're saying gas the Jews, now that sounds like an incitement to violence. So it's we're really skirting the issues.
I mean, that's a clear. That is not without historical context. We know what happened to the Jews during Nazi Germany, during World War II. So it has historical context. So it does leave you with the obvious conclusion that this is an incitement of violence. But it's the government getting involved in limitation of speech is where the problems begin.
Yeah. One of the other areas I find pretty disturbing in all this as well is the issue of the government, and this is the EU government in this case, but coming in and wanting to tell a platform what they can show. To me, if we can't even see unfiltered images of a war, then we're pretty much there's no way we can get around government propaganda at that point. I mean, it's not that we might not be getting government propaganda through some naked social media source, but we're absolutely going to get it if we have to have a filter on what we're allowed to see. So I don't to me that really rubs me wrong. And there's a related story we were going to talk about too, and I think I'll bring that up right now. It's a little bit of a tangent, but in Canada they are the Justin Trudeau government has gone and they've said that they are going to now start regulating podcasts, that you have to have like a permit, I believe, if you make over $10 million or something a year.
You have to register. They say you have to register. Is what they said. You have to register. The CRTC is the Canadian agency with which you have to register.
Yeah, in fact, let me bring that up. This is, like I said, just a little bit of a departure. We're going to get back to the Israel thing in just a second, but this is highly tied to what we were just talking about. So let me bring that up. And James, can you bring this visual up here? So this is Canada to regulate podcasts, and essentially it is if you are a podcast of a certain size, then the government wants you to register with them, and you have to essentially prove that you're, to get this permit, I think, that you're showing stuff that is, I believe it's appropriate for Canadians or something like that. It has to do something with Indigenous people and other things like that. Yeah, to ensure online streaming services make meaningful contributions to Canadian and Indigenous content. I mean, if that isn't regulation of speech, I don't know what the hell is. I mean, to say that if we're going to talk about stuff, we also have to maybe find somebody who can talk about the Indigenous peoples of Canada at the same time as we're talking about this is Israel Hamas thing. That's insane. I just it's amazing the amount of authoritarian crap that's coming out of Canada in the last ever since Trudeau got elected.
Yeah, and there we go again. We have to get back to the historical context of these things. I mean, we do remember how the government acted during the pandemic in terms of shutting down everything, and then when Justin Trudeau and company went even further with the truckers who in Ottawa. I mean, the kind of things they were doing was, I mean, that sounded like a little some petty dictatorship in a banana republic somewhere. I mean, this was really bad. So when you think about, now they're talking about having these podcasters registered, and then they're gonna say, well, we want you to make sure you are presenting things that are about indigenous people and things that are appropriate and all that kind of stuff. First of all, nobody know what the hell appropriate means. Nobody knows that. So how could this not lead to censorship? This is essentially the government talking about compelled speech, okay? And so if they're going to have compelled speech, that means they're going to forbid certain kinds of speech. And when the government gets in the business of compelled speech, into the business of censorship, we are no longer a free nation. I know this is happening in Canada, but how long do you think it will take before it comes here, before we start to talk about it must be appropriate for the trans community, it must be appropriate for the LGBTQ community and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we already have here in the United States, there are states where you can be persecuted for misgendering, whatever the hell that means, for misgendering someone. I mean, this is horrendous when you think about it. So you can see the direction these things are going, and it's not a good place in terms of our freedoms and our liberties. So we got to be careful about these things. Justin Trudeau and company really is being the forerunners, shall we say, of something very, very bad.
Yeah, Trudeau is a despot, and he's showing his tyrannical bent at every corner, at every decision that I've seen him make. Yeah, that's it. No other way around it. Best of luck to podcasters, because even if they did this, and their radio market is completely unlucrative because of their regulations that they have.
Right.
And compared to other nations, it's just a joke. It's not because who wants to listen to the canned stuff that that everybody else is saying? You can't trust it. You don't. You know that it's not the whole truth. So, in that sense, it's just tyranny.
Yes, in every sense of the word. Yes.
Well, and this is the big problem too. It's we sort of tie this back into the Israel Hamas conflict, or any war for that matter. If government has its hands into the media, how can you be sure of what you're seeing is honest? I mean, how can you be sure that you're not being ginned up to go throw more money into a conflict, or more lives down the drain? And this is and actually there's another story that I wanted to bring up about all this as well, going back to the Israel Hamas Palestine war here. James, can you bring this up? There was a story that had to do with babies being beheaded, and what we saw as the conflict was unfolding and all the video was coming out is there was all these horrifying scenes that were coming out from the brutality of the Hamas fighters as they went into Israel. They were just gunning people down on the streets. They were grabbing people and taking them away as hostages, killing children in front of their families. I mean, in some cases, there was a little video that you could see of some of this stuff. But one of the crazy things that came out is I remember seeing this in an interview too. IDF, that's one of the Israel soldiers, Defense Force, I think is what they called, Israeli Defense Force. He was on an interview and he said, as he came out of one of these kibbutzes where there was a bunch of people who'd just been murdered there, and he said that he saw babies with their heads cut, and that immediately started to go viral as 40 babies with their heads beheaded babies, and it started making its round through the media, and it made its rounds all the way up to the White House and Joe Biden, and there was never really a confirmation that this actually happened. Now, it's true. You could say, you can equivocate and say that, hey, look, there was a ton of brutal stuff that happened, and these are clearly monsters, no matter how you look at it, these Hamas fighters that came through this area. But do we really need to propagandize these things to add to a story, just to maybe heighten emotions? And this story went all the way up to the White House, and we actually have a video of that, of Biden claiming he saw evidence that he didn't actually see. It turned out, and so maybe we could roll that clip, James. That is clip 1.
It matters that Americans see what's happening. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children. I never thought I'd ever. Anyway,
Well, and then the White House had to come and walk that back because apparently he didn't actually see it. He just said sort of insinuated that he saw it, and
he said had confirmed, so I mean it could have been confirmed by the intelligence services. I mean, I'm no fan of Biden, but if I'm going by his words, he said had confirmed, so it could have been the CIA or somebody or one of the intelligence service confirmed that actually happened.
Well, maybe, but when the press asked for evidence of this, they wouldn't give it up, and then they started walking it back. Biden actually, and I mean, this is just a horror that we've been dealing with for 3 years now. A president who just endlessly lies to us, and here we are in the middle of a war, and he is passing propaganda, and now you could say, okay, well, he'd been fooled too, maybe, by a lot of these things, but he literally told us, in so many words, that he had seen this evidence that he hadn't seen. So I just, this is, I just find that a really disturbing aspect of all this. And of course, Joe Biden wants to be the one who tells us what is disinformation and what is misinformation. And here he is, as the leader of our country, spreading misinformation during a war. And now it's possible that this actually happened and the evidence just hasn't surfaced yet, but there's a lot of press that are looking for this. And don't get me wrong, babies were murdered. So this is, I mean, these people are monsters. Let's not, try and act like, this is all the difference, hey, these are good guys because they didn't actually behead the babies. But I mean, the idea that, we have that the truth winds up becoming the first casualty of war. I mean, we really need to stick to our guns, I guess, on holding up these standards, because that's what keeps us from making the situation worse, I guess. So anyways, did you guys have more thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, okay, it is true that I've heard that story that about 40 babies will be beheaded in this attack. And do I have any kind of confirmation of that actually happened? Then probably I would have to say no if I'm being pressed about it. But given the atrocity that occurred and given the nature of its occurrence, I don't see how this could be not be true. I mean, every report that I've heard about, I mean, except the one by Biden, seem to suggest that this thing actually happened. We know 1,300 Israeli citizens were murdered in this attack. We know some of it was atrocious. The atrocities were beyond belief. And I don't know if Hamas, who is the main attacker in this particular instance, whose very charter says that they intend to wipe out the Jewish people. I don't know how this could not be true when they have an opportunity to stop a Jewish life from coming into full existence. I mean, I don't know how if given the opportunity, why would they not take it? Which to me is what they did. Now, I'm not going to say, like I said at the beginning of this stuff, I'm not going to say Israel a bunch of angels. The Israelis are a bunch of angels in this. They have done their stuff too. But these attacks by Hamas and some of the other terrorist organizations are beyond belief. And I don't know why this particular part of this attack would be untrue given the atrocious nature of the attack itself.
Yeah. If you want to motivate the citizenry to back going into war, the beheaded babies thing is always a good one. It reminds
beheaded
me
baby card. I'm playing
the
beheaded
beheaded
baby card.
Yeah. So I'm suspicious right off the bat. I mean, it was similar to going in to Kuwait, where they brought out they played the same beheaded baby card, and it turned out to be completely false.
Then it was kill babies in incubators card is what the
that's right.
Was.
Yeah, kill them in the incubators, right? Yeah. And it reminds me of the way the government handles the whole AR-15 thing in school shootings and so on. So, according to FBI data, people get murdered with knives, and that's what you behead a baby with too. But they get murdered by knives over 4 times more often than all rifles put together, and so. It's especially egregious, I suppose, to be murdered by being shot by an AR-15 as opposed to being slowly knifed to death. I mean, if I had my choice, I would prefer to be taken out right away with a single shot from an AR-15 than I would in getting multiple stab wounds and watching my life bleed out as I writhe around in pain. So, but accordingly, the government has to vilify their true target, which is firearm ownership in the United States. But again, back to the thing, if they want to motivate you to back a war, just play the beheaded baby card, and then your future sending soldiers off to create retribution against the beheaded babies is stronger.
Tim, while I would agree that there's propaganda on both sides of this particular conflict, I would agree with that. There's no doubt about that. But I have not yet. The only place that I've seen any sort of denial of the beheading baby stuff is on CNN. CNN was the only person who said they have not been able to confirm it. But every place else have reported this story as fact. And I have not seen any strong denial from anybody in Hamas or any of their spokespeople denying that actually happened. So, I mean, while I will agree with you about the propaganda and about using the beheaded baby card, which, I didn't make the connection to Kuwait, which is also true. I have to agree with that. I have not seen any denials of this thing, quite frankly. I have not seen it. So I by default, to me, I have to believe the story.
And, let me just jump in real quick before you respond, Tim. I have seen some, at least some of the other news agencies, change the thing to unconfirmed reports of 40 babies being killed. So it's not just CNN out there that I think it's the fog of war. And like you said, Leon, maybe it did happen, but it's right now it's sort of being pushed without the actual bona fides, I guess.
Yeah.
But do we want? I mean, okay, fine. If we are looking for confirmation, which I'm saying, sure, we should. Okay, we are supposed to be liberty-minded people who deal in the world of facts and reality. What do we want to be seen on our screens or on our platforms and our stuff? Actual beheaded babies. Do we want to be seeing that? I don't know if I could get that image out of my mind. Even thinking about it, to me, it burns at the soul.
I'm not suggesting that. What I think I'm really talking about here is that whether it's a beheaded baby or a 25-year-old male that's shot to death by Hamas, there's no difference. There's a taking of a life, and 1,300 of them were taken. Yes. So I don't know that it matters in the grand picture whether they beheaded babies or they shot 20-year-olds. It's the important thing is that they took life, and so to over dramatize it, unless you have really good proof that somebody could definitively say, not a Joe Biden, that you can't trust a word out of that guy's mouth. Okay.
I wouldn't buy a car from him. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't buy that Corvette from him. Who knows what that's going to do?
That's right. So outside of a Joe Biden, I mean, if there was somebody reliable that it could be from the government, that's okay. But, yes, we've seen graphic images, and we have confirmed without a reason, beyond a reasonable doubt, that a number of babies were beheaded by Hamas. Then I'll say, yeah, I believe that. But until and unless I see that kind of proof, then I'm just going to chalk it up. What difference does it make if you were shot by an AR-15 or you were knifed to death? You're dead. That's the thing. One's quick and relatively painless, not that it is painless, pain-free, and the other is a long, drawn-out, painful experience. Nonetheless, at the end of the day, you are dead, and that's the thing about this this whole thing. The importance is there's 1,300 people. How they died is immaterial to me. It's that they died.
Well, Tim, there is one thing I would say about that. The one issue with it being a baby is a baby represents something that couldn't possibly represent a threat, right? I mean, so whereas, you kill a man who's 25 and you could say, okay, that's my oppressor. How can somebody see a baby as their oppressor that they have to murder in a crib? I don't
want to speak for people on the other side of this conflict in terms of Hamas or anything like that. But every Israeli child is a future threat to the goals of Hamas of achieving the final solution from the river to the sea. Yep. So even though that child may not be a threat right at this moment, But that's a future threat down the road. As far as that's how I think they will look at it, quite frankly.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Definitely. So, and again, the 25-year-old male, healthy male, is not a threat against somebody with an AK that's attacking out of the blue. Yeah. So that male is running for their life and shot in the back, just like a baby's just laying there. To me, I don't see the big difference. Not a huge difference. So.
Well, I just see a difference in the sense that it'd be just like a prisoner. I mean, if you had a prisoner, if it's a baby, you're not worried about the baby getting up and killing it. At least I'm not. I mean, there was I guess Mad TV had one that was kind of a funny thing, when babies attack. But I don't think we're going there. I don't know. Maybe that's what Hamas is showing, and they're calling them Jewish babies. Yeah, but whatever. Yeah, we're getting pretty dark.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a dark subject.
Yeah. Yes. But I do have to say something that, regardless of whether or not they did behead these babies or not, I think some of the imagery was so horrifying that it really doesn't matter if this particular story is true, other than that we want the evidence to be true that's coming to us. But as far as the implication of it, there was a image, and I didn't show it here, but you can go look it up for yourselves, of this woman who was a German tattoo artist that was at the concert, and she was taken back as a hostage. And I saw this video on Ben Shapiro's video stream, and there's some others that I think have also shown it as well. But I got to admit, it's really hard to find now on just a general search. That's why I listed Ben Shapiro, because I know you can find it with his. But there was some Hamas fighters, and they're in the back of a truck, and they have this body that they're sitting on, and it's been identified as the body of that German woman, and she is stripped down to her underwear. Her legs are distorted in crazy positions that somebody who's not alive could have them twisted in, and they are laughing with their weapons out, and they are spitting on her as they drive away while they're all cheering with the camera. So, I mean, this is the brutality that we're talking about. Whether or not these babies got beheaded, there's literally horrifying things that were done here. And just wanted to make it clear that we're,
it doesn't really add to their cause to do that. No. It's not adding to their cause whatsoever. And so there we are. Once again, not enough war fronts already in existence with Taiwan and Korea and Russia and Ukraine and all that, and now we have more of this. And hey, at least it's back in the Middle East where we're all comfortable with going to fight. So when the American troops are sent over there in the near future, especially when Hezbollah comes down from the north and so on and so forth, like they're talking about doing, this all happens. It's come on, all you big strong men, Uncle Sam needs your help again, and off we go.
Yeah. This is a worry that, I mean, we're not just talking about something isolated here that's just happening over there. I mean, this could literally spill into something a lot more major, especially with the nut that we have in power here in the United States right now.
The undiplomatic nut.
Yeah. And some of the pro-war rhetoric that we hear, and that's quite frankly too, I didn't mention that at the beginning of the show, but some of the reaction of this terrorism, this brutality, has caused some people who are seeking to be president and some people who are in positions of political power to say, go in there and flatten that whole area. So, the Palestine. So this, and this could obviously lead to something a lot bigger, if everybody gets involved. And they're trying to say Iran is involved as well. And Iran is sort of tied to Russia in some ways. So you can see how this could all spin out of control really, really fast.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We live in a dangerous world.
Yeah.
It's true. We do. I mean, the smell of war is all over. You know, Russia is in Ukraine. Now Israel and Hamas is fighting. China is seeing an opportunity to retake Taiwan, and there are other little skirmishes all around. So who knows where this is all going to end? Are we heading towards World War III? I don't know, but it does not look good. The smell and the winds of war are rising and blowing and stenching up our noses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the best thing we can do as liberty-minded people is to try to talk to people directly instead of through our governments. That might help a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, especially some of the people, we just showed a video last week of, or the last episode that we did of Lindsey Graham talking about $100 billion that we spent in Ukraine to attack Russia is the best money we've ever spent. And those are the people that are running the show. So, try not to depend upon your government to be your mouthpiece too much. Well, I think we're right about the time for the Knucklehead Noise Patrol, so let's jump into that. So there was a recent thing at I think Boston University.
It was Boston University, the Center for Anti-Racism Research.
Yeah, and this had to do with Ibram X. Kendi, and he is a guy who's been promoting a lot of this division in the country, the critical race theory stuff and anti-racism, all that stuff. He's one of those promoters of this stuff. And they had a scandal where they've gotten millions and millions of dollars. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 million or something like that toward that center.
Well, I heard 30 million. I read 30 million, then I read 43 million, and lately I read 55 million. I don't know what the number is, but it's a big number.
Yeah. Well, James, maybe we could bring the visual up for this too. The Boston University has launched an inquiry to say, what happened to the money? James, do we have that visual? Can we pull that up? Oh, yeah. So there it is. So that's Ibram X. Kendi, and I guess he's looking off into space to see if that's where the money went.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyways, maybe some racist ran away with his money. I don't know, but I guess it's made a lot of the staff mad because he's having to fire a lot of them. So a lot of them are coming out of the woodwork to say, hey, we don't like the way he's running things here and blah, blah, blah. They're essentially attacking all this stuff. But yeah, it's just, this guy has been just a sower of, I guess, division within this country recently in last 5 or 10 years. And so definitely want to bring this up that, hey, it's a scandal around him, just like there's a scandal around Black Lives Matter with where their money's going. I guess the woman who runs that is buying real estate for herself and her family.
In Southern California.
Yeah, her life matters a little more than all the other Black lives.
Yes. Her baby daddy and her mother and her wife and all of them have gotten very fat contracts.
Yeah, but apparently, this guy is making money hand over fist with this grift, and this is a contract that was made between the University of Michigan that Campus Reform had put out there, and it shows the type of money this guy's getting in his grift. So this isn't just like some guy out there fighting for the cause of saying, hey, some people are being mistreated. He's being paid handsomely, like this is $20,000 for it sounds like a half hour, 1 hour talk or something. So there's a lot of money in this grift. and we see it sort of going into their pockets and disappearing somewhere else. But just to show the nature of this grift, let me show you a video of Ibram X. Kendi at the Aspen Institute. And this is his whole shtick is anti-racism. And so therefore, what is racism? And somebody asked him that question. And this is the heart of the grift. The guy can't even answer the question. Can we see it's KNP1, James, the first Knucklehead
And I'm wondering, I just finished reading Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility, and I think she did like an excellent job of defining racism as like a system of oppression as opposed to like a personal choice. It's like, it's there, you benefit from it, or you don't. That's its purpose. You talked about the importance of defining racism, but I, unless I missed it, which is possible, I didn't hear your personal definition. Is there one that you would offer us? Like, how do you define racism?
Racism. It was a long clip, so we wanted to jump in and not get flagged for showing too much of it. But now we're going to jump in and show you his answer. Okay, so he's just been asked, what's racism? I've been reading these books and I really want to know, what's your definition of racism?
Sure. So racism, I would define it as a collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequity that are substantiated by racist ideas. Sure. A collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequity that are substantiated by racist ideas. And anti-racism is pretty simple, using the same terms. Anti-racism is a collection of anti-racist policies leading to racial, anybody want to take a guess? Equity that are substantiated by anti-racist ideas.
Oh, the art of the grift. Did you see he gets paid like $20,000 to tell people racism is racism and anti-racism is anti-racism?
Yes. Yeah. Man, these people, these race hustlers, they're really good, you know. We have a thing going on in society right now, and they ask somebody, what is a woman? And they say anyone who identify as a woman. That's it. And now you say, well, what is racism? Ibram X. Kendi is telling us anything that identify as racism is racism. Okay? That's what's going on there. So you see, these race hustlers are very good. You know, they're very good at it. BLM and Kendi, same thing. They just they're attacking this so-called problem and profiting from it from a slightly different angle. You see, BLM went and they march in the street, they burn down our cities, and they tell white people, all you're guilty of some sin of your forefathers, so you better start paying up. Well, all these white liberals and their corporations decide to give BLM a bunch of money, okay? $90 million. Where's the money now? What have been done? How have this uplift black people? Well, it did uplift a few black people, okay? Patrice Collins bought 4 homes in Southern California. So she was uplifted. Her baby daddy was given some, I think it was a $900,000 or some kind of exorbitant number contract like that for, I think, security services. So he was uplifted. Her wife, Patrice Collins' wife, was given a contract for some other services. So she was uplifted too. So there was a very concentrated amount of upliftment that occurs with these race hustlers. So we have Ibram X. Kendi now, which is Center for Anti-Racist Research at Boston University. Another bunch of those jackasses, liberals on the left, who say, oh God, anytime you talk racism, these people, their knees get weak and they get leave of their senses. So Kendi comes along and tell them, oh God, you're guilty. So come and give me some money. So all of a sudden you hear Kendi, well, I don't know what the number is. I heard 30 million. I heard 43 million. I heard 55 million. One of them. But Kendi got a lot. In the 2 years that the center have been in existence, they produced 2 papers. That's it. That could be considered original research.
Well,
and
Leon, how many ways can you say racism is racism?
Exactly. No. You're missing the point. How many ways you can say anything that identify as racism is racism? Okay. So up to now, Kendi cannot tell us, well, he have gone silent on this particular issue. You know, a man who used to be talking all over the place and telling us how guilty you guys are and how responsible you are to fix our problems. All of a sudden, you have gone silent on this particular issue. Lay off half of the staff at the center, and we don't know what happened to the money. How, it's amazing. BLM can't tell us what happened to the money. Black Lives Matter, they can't tell us what happened to the money. and neither can Ibram X. Kendi. It's amazing that these race hustlers suddenly get amnesia when it comes to finances. It's so amazing. It's really incredible. I think
Leon, this is why they told us math is racist.
That's exactly right. Math is racist. So these race hustlers really can't count. So they don't understand if they're spending $1. They don't understand if they're spending $1 or they're spending $1 million. They don't have that clear understanding. So that's why, yeah, you're right. Math is racist. Poor Ibram. I feel sorry for him.
Wow, that soliloquy was worth 20 grand, and if you don't get it, Leon, you're being jilted.
I think that might be racism if I don't get it.
That could be. I think you're right. That's an evidence right there.
Well, yeah, I think to get that kind of money, you have to put on I guess it has to rise to a certain level of delusion to get that kind of money, right? Leon, you just didn't rise to that level of delusion. Sorry, grounded in reality. You don't get paid for being grounded in reality.
What? Not these days. Not these days. This race hustling is profitable. Maybe I'm in the wrong business. I'm in the wrong business.
I feel that way for libertarians, right? I mean, we're selling freedom. It's like, you're free. Okay. Nobody's going to pay it. You should be free.
That race hustlers say they're free to take the money of white liberals who's so stupid enough to give it to them.
That's a good point. Kudos to the Kendis of the world and the Black Lives Matter. They found a way to soak liberals out.
This is a profitable endeavor, man. Race hustling, a very profitable endeavor. I'm telling you, I'm in the wrong business, man.
You are.
Well, I wouldn't care if they were just taking their money. The problem is then those liberals turn around and take all of our money through the government and put it in. So he's actually pretty smart. He gets the right people bamboozled. He gets a libertarian bamboozle, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, I don't believe anybody should be taxed for this, so you got nothing. Okay, well, you've squandered another hour. But,
No, wait a minute. That last soliloquy was worth 20 grand to whoever was listening. So that's not a squandered time spent. That's for sure.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for saying that.
Well, and on that note, thank all of you out there for joining us on another conversation on liberty. Check out our online content on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and Rumble, where you'll also find many other videos that we put together and conversations with a lot of people fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. Until next time, think of what you can do in your area to make a difference for liberty, because you can see the world is sort of coming unglued under authoritarian, so we need all the help we can get. So until next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.